Welcome to Mad on Books, where I talk about fantasy mostly, science fiction sometimes, and comics occasionally. I recently built a new bookshelf, which allowed me to reorganize all of the bookshelves in my flat, which was long overdue and desperately necessary. While doing that, and shooting time-lapse photos of me reorganizing things, I thought maybe it would be a good idea to do a bookshelf tour and put it all together. Bookshelf tours being a thing you do on BookTube, here's mine. Let's get to it. So I recently built a new shelf from IKEA, of course, not Billy. And that allowed me to reorganize my shelves, which was well overdue and very needed. So my big shelf, which is behind me whenever I shoot videos, I've reorganized, and in a minute we'll go into the living room and see the other shelves. So what have I got here? First of all, down the bottom, I have my Tolkien collection, and then on the other side is a bunch of stuff I read relatively recently and liked. The organizing principle. Recently I saw a video by Philip Chase where he did a bookshelf tour, and it kind of embarrassed me. Put me to shame in a way. Not really. I am not running a library here. So everything's organized however the fuck I want to organize it. It's nowhere alphabetical or any other kind of system. This shelf is primarily organized by what would look good behind me on my bookshelf in a video, and primarily to showcase the series that I most love. Over here is a bunch of stuff that I read and quite liked in the last year or so. That will keep growing and filling and probably rotating, and we'll see. The next shelf, and this was one of the things that I really enjoyed about reorganizing this shelf, is I could have all of my Malazan stuff, not stacked vertically, but horizontally in a relatively organized fashion. All the way over to here, and I think that's even not all the Malazan stuff. Editing Matt here. It just occurred to me that some intrepid Malazan fan is no doubt going to actually me about how my Malazan collection is organized. I invite all you actually Malazan fans to do exactly that. And if you all agree about how it should be organized, I will reorganize it. And then George R.R. Martin over in the corner, Song of Ice and Fire, and supplementary Westeros materials like Rise of the Dragon and the World of Ice and Fire, which don't fit vertically, and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and Fire and Blood. Next shelf up, oh, and I've also got these little fellows. I don't know if you can see those properly. This is a skull I got from an ossuary. Look up an ossuary if you don't know what it is. They're fucking weird, in the Czech Republic. And this is from the British Museum. It's a little Spartan helmet. So, next shelf up. We have, really only because the cover's really pretty, and it's one of my favorite pieces of fantasy art ever, we've got Stormbringer, face out. This was part of the organizing principle of this shelf as well, is how many good-looking covers can I face out? So, the rest of the hardbacks are behind it. Then we've got the special editions of the Farseer trilogy. Then the whole realm of the Elderlings. Then we've got Rodan Stinker, which is kind of a mascot of the channel. In the intro that I used to use, he always sort of ended up on top of the books. And this is just a reminder to me to try and think more about books. This, if you play role-playing games, specifically Dungeons & Dragons probably, this is a giant 20-sided dice. Always with the 20 out. This is a statue of Manjushri. Manjushri is the Tibetan Buddhist Buddha of wisdom. And because I sit right there where the camera is when I work, my desk is right under the camera, and I'm looking over at this bookshelf, this hopefully keeps me intelligent. And then we've got Dune over here. Also great covers to face out. I'll probably rotate these occasionally because I've got the other ones behind it. And the Folio Society edition of Dune, and to be honest, Dune Messiah, just the front cover, I like more than the Dune one. The Dune one, I think what bothers me about it is it's so cold. It's this sort of silver gray with a lot of blue and silver debossing and that kind of thing. And Arrakis, Dune, to me, is very warm colors. It's a desert. It's brown and beige and all of that. So maybe that's why I like the Dune Messiah Folio Edition cover a little bit more. It's a great illustration, and the little gold mouse on there is also very cool. Other Folio Society editions over there. And then if we go up one more, this shelf, unfortunately, in the framing that I tend to kind of use in my videos, this shelf is not actually visible. So I may move some of those down, but it's hard having these huge series all together in one place and making space for other things, but we'll see. So War for the Rose Throne by Peter McLean, which the publisher was nice enough to send to me. Lies of Locke Lamora, I think this is also a great cover to face out. The other ones are behind it. Black Company, I want to maybe reread these soon. I've only got the one bind up at the moment. The books of Lenkmar, which are the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories by Fritz Leiber, they are awesome. Also want to reread those. They're old school fantasy. First Law Trilogy in slightly special editions. The Spear Cuts Through Water. One of the best covers I have. One of the best books I have. Really, really awesome. Book of the New Sun with supplementary materials like the Lexicon Earthos and the gorgeous Folio Society special edition of it. The Books of Earthsea, which is also what I call sort of a semi-special edition. Another giant D20. These, I don't know if you can see these are woodblock typography. I have a pretty large collection of wood and lead typography. I just think they're amazing, interesting objects. And The Dark Tower by Stephen King with the complete concordance, which is sort of a reference guide to The Dark Tower. My big heavy pistol that I bought because I was reading The Dark Tower. A little more Stephen King over there. I'm not huge on Stephen King. I like him. I like everything I've ever read of his, but I haven't read that much. And then to go higher up, we will have to cut to another angle. So as you can see, from here up, things are a bit messier. That's because these shelves never appear in a video. The framing is somewhere down here, and therefore I don't really care that much. The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, perhaps the most catchy series title in all of fantasy. A holder for all of my various bookmarks. I have gotten into collecting bookmarks, and I have probably way too many, certainly more than I need. A few things that I'm currently kind of working on. Chronicles of Amber, Long Price Quartet, Italo Calvino, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, and Senlin Ascends, which I've started but not finished. Malice by John Gwynne does not belong in there. These are short stories. Short story collections. Maybe you can see which ones they are. I bought a bunch of short story collections not too long ago just to sort of put in between other books. And I think that's actually quite a good idea. A couple of what I call semi-special editions. Princess Bride, H.P. Lovecraft, Complete Tales, Count of Monte Cristo, and all of this, is my Paul Auster collection. It's almost everything Paul Auster has ever written. I really love Paul Auster. I need to talk about him on the channel sometime. There are a couple of books he's written which go extremely up his own ass meta, which I'm not so crazy about. So they're not there, but otherwise everything. We go one shelf up. This is all comics. I'm not going to go through all of them, but obviously there's Vinland Saga, there's Grendel by Matt Wagner, or created by Matt Wagner. If you don't know Grendel and you like comics, you should read Grendel. And then a whole bunch of other stuff. There's Sandman up there. There's Watchmen, some Judge Dredd, Lock and Key. My favorite thing is Monsters, which is super cool. Hawkeye, Daredevil, all sorts of different things up there. And there's some space for when new comics come in. If we go all the way up to the top, where I can't quite reach, wait a sec. All the way up there, you may notice that this side is all comics. And ask yourself, why are there comics up there and not down here when you have space? Well, the very top shelf is taller than all of the other shelves. All the other shelves are the same size. I had this custom built when I moved in. The very top shelf is for the funky, really tall books. So right up the top, we've got Jeff Johns' run of Green Lantern. We've got the whole Hellboy Library Edition. They are gorgeous. We've got some more Daredevil by Frank Miller. We've got Saga and East of West. And some single issue stuff. I do buy single issues, but not that many. So there's only a couple of holders up there for them. And then in the corner there, that's all science fiction and fantasy art books. So when I do those art videos, which I've done a couple of times, that's where they're coming from. For the rest, we have to go into the living room. So these three shelves are where I got to move a lot of things from the office shelf we just looked at to these. One of them is the new one. They're all basically the same. I think it's Hemnes from IKEA. It's kind of an upgrade to Billy, but it's still IKEA. But they look a little nicer than Billy's. This is where all of the TBR moved to, and we'll look at this a bit closer in a minute. But basically, the top three shelves of this are all TBR. Some of this is already read, and down the bottom is mythology and King Arthur stuff, because I've got a few Arthur-related books. This one is other things entirely that we never talk about on the channel. These two shelves are Buddhism. I've read quite a lot about Buddhism. This whole shelf is design stuff, my work. This is random things. Over here are some travel books, some history, some Berlin-related things about the city, and a bunch of other randomly selected stuff. And an antique camera, and my Shakespeare, and some poetry, and whatever. It's just a big mix. And down the bottom are sketchbooks and notebooks and all sorts of random books that aren't for reading, basically. And then over there, all of this down to here, and some of this is role-playing books. Lots of different games. There's D&D in there, which is probably the one everyone knows, and probably none of the rest. But if anyone's interested in role-playing games and wants to know what they all are, you can either freeze frame it and zoom in, or we can have a chat about it sometime. Below that is all photography, because I used to work as a photographer, and I've been a very avid amateur photographer as well. So here and the bottom two shelves are all photo books about photography, but mostly books of photography. Lots of different artists there. Ansel Adams, Edward Weston, all of the Magnum guys, Jim Rakita, Helmut Newton, Martin Parr, lots and lots of different photography books down there. This is mostly the TBR shelf. So I moved all of my TBR stuff from the office over here. There's a lot of good stuff there. Mostly it's kind of sorted by no real system, except the stuff I would like to read soon is right up here at the front. So, yeah, not so sure about Empire of the Vampire, actually. But continuing, Long Price Quartet. Between Two Fires I've heard is interesting. Lonesome Dove I really want to get to. Grace of Kings I really want to get to. Legend, Vanished Birds I really want to get to. From there, it's mostly just sort of the way I put it on the shelf. But as you can see, there's lots of different... Oh, yeah, Empire of Silence. I really want to get to... Yeah, that probably belongs in there. A whole bunch of different things down here. The rest of John Gwynn's first series. Some Discworld. Yeah, some Ursula K. Le Guin science fiction. Raymond E. Feist, the Old Magician series. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, which I could only find in 3 different editions. Lots of different things there. This is all, up to here, is all self-pub indie stuff that authors have generously sent me. Thank you, authors. I want to read all of that, especially the remaining 2 Adan books in Philip Chase's trilogy. Also Bold Ascension, Von Roycroft, and also the Hybrid Helix stuff from Joe Byrne. But there are others. Spear Cuts Through Water is over here just because I just bought a paperback for a friend and a paperback for myself, but I have read it before. Other things there that I've talked about. This, Augustus, John Williams, I read Stoner, I loved it. This was a gift by a good friend who sent it to me when I was not doing very well, when I was on my YouTube break. Thank you very much. And down below, these, I'm not sure you can actually see these that well. These are all hardbacks from the Broken Binding, from my subscription. Some of which I really want to read, some of which I'm like, not so sure about. Some other things that I've read. And below that is mythology and Arthur and so on. We don't need to go down there necessarily. You have no idea how good it feels reorganizing my bookshelves, having everything I want in the space I want it to be, and having open space, which I haven't had on my bookshelves for a while. It feels so good. Actually, you're probably a fan of books, so you probably do know exactly how it feels. I hope this was entertaining. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're reading awesome books in your awesome bookshelves, and I'll see you next time.